CTV News with Kelly Greig.
Good evening and welcome to this special half-hour newscast on CJD 800 and CTV News Montreal.ca. It's election day across the province. Voters have 2 more hours to head to polling stations. And by the end of the night, Montreal will have a new mayor. Here's Sweet Arasi.
Polling stations opened at 10 o'clock as Montrealers cast their votes for the next mayor and council.
Most of them are pretty professional, whether it's Soraya or Luc.
Well, I think we've seen a lot of progress over the past couple of administrations with sustainable transportation, and I want to make sure that progress continues.
A recent survey suggests 29% of voters are undecided. But on voting day, the ones who showed up knew exactly who they wanted as mayor.
I was pretty confident, yeah, because basically there were some values that were expressed by some of the parties that were completely uncovered by others. So from my perspective, that made it just very clear.
However, some voters reported minor issues at the polling stations.
A bit disorganized because the people at the table where they would identify us didn't have the proper lists. But it went through. 10 minutes wait.
That said, Elections Montreal says they have enough staff to keep things running.
Well, we have 13,000 workers all across the 450 polling locations all across the city in the 19 boroughs, and everything has been going quite smoothly up until now.
Sébastien Trottier says voter turnout during advance voting was at 17%. And while the STM is on strike, he says all polling stations are within walking distance.
So we hope that Montrealers will go out and vote in large numbers.
For the first time in 8 years, Montreal will choose a new face for the city's top job.
But yeah, I'm hopeful and I hope for the best.
A hopeful tone from voters as Montreal waits for the results tonight. Polling stations close at 8 p.m. Sweet Arasi, CTV News.
And in Montreal, the campaign has been dominated by 3 major issues: affordability, homelessness, and transit. Matt Gilmore is live from Ensemble Montreal headquarters. And Matt, how are the parties feeling?
Well, Kelly, the parties are still in the field getting as many people out to the polling stations as possible. As Sweeta mentioned in her report, about a third of Montrealers heading into Election Day were still undecided about who they were going to vote for. And the results tonight really could come down to who has the better ground game. Now, both of the candidates, both the leading candidates, I should say, Soraya Martinez-Ferrada and Luc Rabouin, cast their votes this morning. Martinez-Ferrada has enjoyed a healthy lead in the polls leading into today and throughout the campaign, and her party Ensemble Montreal is hoping that where we are tonight, there will be a big party here, lots of celebration before the end of the night. Rabouin and Projet Montréal, though, are staying hopeful, staying optimistic. Both candidates have pitched themselves as change candidates throughout the campaign. That's been a little bit harder for Rabouin, who's taken over Valérie Plante's Projet Montréal after 8 years in office. 55% of Montrealers say they were dissatisfied with the job that Plante did as mayor, and tonight we'll see if Rabouin has been able to overcome that. Martinez-Ferrada, on the other hand, is hoping to capitalize on that dissatisfaction. She's promised to encourage more development and housing, solve the homelessness issue by the end of her first term, and to review some of the bike lane infrastructure. Rabouin says that Montreal does need change, but not to go backwards. And neither of these candidates really was able to catch fire during this campaign, as that's sort of evidence in that undecided column in their most recent polls. Tonight, though, either way, Montreal will elect a new mayor. Kelly?
All right, thanks so much. That's Matt Gilmore live for us. Turning our attention now to Laval, there are 3 candidates running for mayor, including incumbent Stéphane Boyer. And Matt, what are some of the key issues for electors there?
Well, Kelly, a lot of the same issues that we're hearing about or that we've heard about over the last month or so in Montreal. Some of the key issues that are top of mind for voters here in Laval. One of them, of course, safety and security. Another one is infrastructure. So we're talking about roads, sewers, water mains. residents want to make sure that those are top quality and that those are actually improved on and renovated over the next 4 years. And a big one as well is taxes. Residents are concerned about their tax rates and obviously wanting to keep that as low and affordable as possible. Now, there are 3 candidates running for mayor here in Laval. As you mentioned, one of them is Stéphane Boyer. He's the incumbent. He's been mayor for the last 4 years. He says he wants to focus on providing basic services for people, like maintaining infrastructure, streets, and parks. He's up against Claude Larochelle, who's actually a councillor and who is now running for mayor. And he had an interesting campaign slogan here. His slogan was he wants to focus on what he calls the boring stuff, for example, like the water network, because he says parts of the city flood every time there's heavy rain, so he wants to improve that. And then another candidate running for mayor is Frédéric Maillet, who says the city has lost control of its finances, and he wants to, of course, we can see a theme here, focus on the city's infrastructure. He wants to have infrastructure more accessible and closer proximity to people, for example, like soccer fields. So that's one idea that he's pitched. In addition to mayor, there are 22 councillor positions up for grabs here in Laval. Laval is the 3rd largest city in Quebec. More than 325,000 people can vote. 4 years ago, though, only 28% of people voted in the race for mayor. We'll see if that number improves tonight. We'll be here throughout the night here in Laval. We'll have more coverage. Kelly?
All right, thanks so much. That's Matt Grillo for us in Laval. And on the South Shore, Catherine Fournier is seeking a 2nd term, running against the leader of a new party. Denise, what are expectations going into tonight there?
Well, a recent poll conducted by SEGMA found that they are expecting a possible landslide tonight for Catherine Fournier. Now, she's a very popular mayor here, very charismatic political figure, and her only opponent is Sacha Parasella, who came late in the campaign. In fact, he started a party and his campaign for mayor when it appeared that Fournier would be running unopposed, something he says that is not good for democracy. Fournier, meanwhile, has been campaigning hard in the last few weeks, and in the meantime, she has also announced her pregnancy, something that could have been politically risky. But she said that she did not want to conceal this fact from voters, that there is a trust that's there, and she wants to also show that you can be a new mother and a mayor, and she has a plan in place to do just that. Now, one of the biggest issues here in Longueuil is infrastructure. This is something Fournier has made a platform in her campaign, saying that they need to invest in what's already here and not build new infrastructure. Also looking at more partnerships with other levels of government, including with the mayor of Laval, Stéphane Boyer, and sharing some of those infrastructure costs to alleviate the taxpayers. So that's one of the platforms. And also, we know another issue facing voters here is the homelessness issue. So we'll be hearing more about that and hearing from some of the campaigners here how things have gone, and from the Catherine Fournier herself later tonight. We'll be bringing you more on that. Back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Denise. To wrap up the Montreal municipal election campaign, let's bring in political analyst Raphael Melançon. So Raphael, first off, who do you think ran the best and the worst campaigns?
Kelly, I have to say nobody, sadly, in this campaign, because we've had, in the past 45 days, we've seen candidates of the 2 main parties presenting ideas that are mainly the same on most issues. So it's different. It's difficult for a lot of Montrealers to really differentiate Ensemble Montréal from Projet Montréal in this election. And I would say, if you look at the mayoral candidates themselves, they've ran basically a pretty bland, pretty beige campaign since the beginning. And that's why we see so many people still undecided in this election in the latest polls. That's why we see so many people who might stay home also today instead of heading to the polls and expressing their opinions. So I would say mainly a bland campaign, a boring campaign, no major project. In 2017, Valérie Plante made people dream, at least with her pink line that she promised. It never materialized, but at least it did bring some inspiration to many Montrealers at the time, to many voters. We didn't see any big projects being proposed by the main parties in this election. I would say if you look at the latest polls, the Palace Data poll that came out just a few days ago, it seems like Gilbert Thibodeau from Action Montréal got some momentum towards the end of the campaign here. So we'll have to wait and see tonight how it translates into potentially results for him at City Hall. But so far, I would say there's no big winners so far in this election if we look just at the campaigns they ran on both sides.
Well, you mentioned kind of a lack of inspiration this campaign for voters, but municipal elections already traditionally have low voter turnout. Is there anybody who can turn that to their advantage, perhaps?
Well, usually a higher voter turnout means that it's a vote for change. And as we know, in the recent polls, we've seen that nearly 3/4 of Montrealers wanted to have change. They wanted to get rid of the Projet Montréal administration. So a higher voter turnout would usually mean that it's a vote for change, probably playing to the advantage of Ensemble Montréal, for instance, tonight. But there's also to take into consideration, we need to take into consideration the fact that there's a major strike affecting public transit in Montreal. So that also might have an impact on people staying at home instead of heading to the polls today. So we'll have to wait and see. But it's also, again, if there's a lower voter turnout, it all comes down to the get out the vote strategy for parties. And here, let's face it, Projet Montréal still has a very strong organization, very mobilized volunteers. So to get out the vote, they certainly have the advantage. So if voter turnout is lower, should be playing to the advantage of Luc Rabouin and Projet Montréal. If it's a higher voter turnout, probably a vote for change, probably a good sign for Soraya Martinez and Ensemble Montréal, but we'll still have to wait and see tonight. And I will be there, of course, during our late night newscast to analyze the results tonight with you, Kelly.
I was just about to say, we'll be talking to you again a little later on once the results do start coming in. Raphael, thank you so much for taking the time.
Always a pleasure, Kelly. See you soon.
And as we mentioned, both CJD 800 and CTV News will have extensive coverage of election results, starting with Elias Makos hosting a radio special at 8 p.m. with results, interviews with teams in the field, and analysis. CTV Montreal's digital team will have the latest on what this all means for you. And join us on our late newscast for a roundup of election night. A man was stabbed and killed last night in St. Henri. Police were called around 3:20 a.m. for a fight near Charlebois and St. Philip Streets. Emergency crews found the victim in a wooded area near the railway tracks. He was conscious, but later died of his injuries in hospital.
When the police located the victim, he was injured, but he was conscious, but his condition got worse, so he got transferred to the hospital in a critical condition. When the victim arrived at the hospital, he succumbed his injuries. So for now, it's the 29th murder to happen on the island of Montreal for 2025.
Police have yet to make any arrests. Cold and flu season is starting, and that means more people are heading to emergency rooms and walk-in clinics, even though they might not have to. The latest data from Montreal Area Hospital shows that most ERs are well over capacity, with the MUHC's Glen site, Lakeshore, and the Jewish General at more than double capacity. ER staff say people showing up for minor ailments should just stay home. Here's Dr. Mitch Schulman.
So if you have nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, but you can keep up with your liquids, don't visit me in the emergency room. If you have a sore throat and you're able to swallow, don't visit me in the emergency room. If you have symptoms of a cold, a blocked nose, blocked or runny nose, a bit of a cough, don't see me in the emergency room. Those are things that we commonly see, especially at this time of year.
You can find out more advice about when to go to the ER in our article on ctvnewsmontreal.ca. Time now for our In Case You Missed It feature. 10 years after a serious accident in Hudson, a young woman had to give up on one dream but learned to pursue another. Here's Caroline Van Vlartigan.
We first met Tina Lyon Adams in 2015. It was just before Christmas.
I'm walking with a walker, still in quite a bit of pain, but I'm always going to have pain, and I know I'm probably always going to have to live with the pain.
She was right. A decade and over 20 surgeries later.
I've had 3 ligament transplants. I've had a hip replacement, a reconstructed pelvis.
She's just had another operation.
It's my 3rd revision ligament transplant.
Tina was 20 when she and a friend were struck by a drunk driver while jogging near her Hudson home. Tina suffered the worst of the impact and was in a coma for 6 days. She survived, but not her dreams. She had to let go of plans to become a police officer.
Physically, emotionally, I've had a lot of damage.
And something else.
I was told that I would never be able to carry my own children because I have a reconstructed pelvis.
How are you? How are you doing?
A year after the accident, Tina reached out to a personal trainer.
You have pain? Yeah, it's swollen. Okay.
They've become close, and together they have rebuilt Tina's strength and body over
Tina doesn't have a choice about that.
and over.
This is her way of life. She lives with a body that is restructured.
And over again.
But she'll live with that trauma and what happened to her for the rest of her life.
Normally, you don't have a chance of survival.
And around the same time, Tina met someone else.
He knew nothing about what had happened to me.
I was kind of surprised since, I've never met her. I never heard of her before.
They began seeing each other.
And we started talking about dogs and yeah.
And dogs led to dating and...
That's it. And then it just kept going after that.
But because of the injuries to her shattered pelvis, she eventually had to tell him she might never be able to carry a child.
It didn't matter. There's other option. She's a fantastic woman, and deep inside I look at her and I know that she's worth it in every way anyway. So.
And just over 4 years ago, a surprise. Tina found out she was pregnant.
I was so happy. It was like meant to be, we were talking about it and then, wow.
Show Mama how to close it. She told me how.
Madeline is now 3 and Lily just turned 18 months.
I am truly blessed. They're my miracle girls.
And last August, Tina and Jeffrey made their family official and got married. But she wanted to remind us that none of this has come easily. And while the man who hit her did serve some time in prison, she's received a life sentence.
10 years ago, somebody decided to take the wheel while highly intoxicated. And that moment didn't just change a moment, it changed a lifetime.
Have you forgiven him?
I forgive him for myself, but I forgive him, that's what I say. But what happened, I can't change what happened. The damage that he's caused me, I still live with that every single day.
Caroline Van Vlortigan, CTV News, Hudson.
Montreal's Jamaican community is hosting a fundraiser for victims of Hurricane Melissa. It's happening at Suite 662 in LaSalle. Donations of clothing, gift cards, and toiletries are being accepted. And the event is a way for those with connections to the island to support one another.
It's heartbreaking to see. Jamaica was a beautiful country. It still is. We will rebuild. We will, get back to where we were or better. But it's hard. It's hard to see. A lot of people have lost their homes, their cars, their businesses, their entire lives, basically.
We are raising funds and collecting items, materials, electronics, food, anything that families could be in need. I know in Jamaica right now, there's nothing. They have no power, they have no water, they have no food, they have no needs, no beds, sheets, clothes. They have nothing.
Donations are being accepted tonight and all week long at 662 90th Avenue in LaSalle. In Ottawa, Mark Carney's first budget is expected on Tuesday, and one of the major issues is expected to be the trade war with the U.S. Colton Prale has the story.
2 days before Mark Carney presents his first federal budget, it's still not clear which party will help the minority Liberal government pass it.
We don't need a higher cost of living through a higher costed budget. We need an affordable budget for affordable lives for all Canadians.
The Conservatives and the Bloc both say they're willing to help on their own terms. Pierre Poilievre is calling for fewer taxes and less spending.
The inflation that spending has caused has landed on the shoulders of single moms and seniors and others who can't pay their bills.
But new polling by Nanos Research for CTV News shows more Canadians are willing to accept a higher level of spending if it means investing in programs for Canadians. Support for the idea is up to 47%, from 35% 2 years ago, and neck with those hoping for a balanced budget that cuts taxes.
The single most important thing this budget needs to work towards is increasing investment in Canada. We have both immediate challenges with what we're doing with the United States and long-term challenges around growth and productivity.
Support for infrastructure investment as a top budget priority has doubled since 2023, now just behind tackling the deficit. But healthcare remains the top priority for Canadians, even as issues like inflation, housing, and tariff relief take away some of the focus.
For average Canadians, what they want to see is no cuts to healthcare at this particular point in time, but they're going to want to see investments in the long term.
Mark Carney campaigned on a $4 billion investment in community healthcare and has repeatedly promised not to cut provincial health transfers.
While the Liberals don't have the votes on their own to pass the budget, they could do it if some opposition members abstained from voting. Asked about that today, Poilievre says his Conservative MPs will be there Tuesday and do their jobs. Colton Prail, CTV News, Ottawa.
Canada has signed a defense cooperation deal with the Philippines. The agreement will allow the armed forces of both countries to work closer together by participating in exercises in each other's territories. Canada and the Philippines are both critics of China's actions in the disputed South China Sea. Police in the UK arrested 2 people but released 1 without charges after a stabbing attack on a train. 11 people were hospitalized and 1 is in critical condition. The 2 men were arrested 8 minutes after the first emergency calls were made on a train from northern England to London. Despite initial reports, police said the attack was not related to terrorism. Prosecutors in Paris say 2 suspects accused in the Louvre jewel heist are a couple. The 37-year-old and 39-year-old suspects both have multiple theft convictions. A 34-year-old man and a 38-year-old woman are also in custody in connection to the incident. Prosecutors have not revealed whether investigators are making progress in locating the missing jewels. Game 7 of the World Series went into extra innings, coming down to the 11th.
High fly to left. He's hit it a long way. And it's gone.
Will Smith hit a home run in the 11th inning, making the LA Dodgers the first back-to-back World Series champions in 25 years. The game was in Toronto, and fans were devastated.
So you're in the bottom of the 9th. Every kid, you, me, everyone. It's the bottom of the 9th. Bases loaded. You're that's your walk-off. That's every kid's fantasy. It just didn't happen for us today. It was a fairy tale victory. It's a massively depressing loss.
It's a tough loss, really tough, but we're proud of our team, and it was an amazing game. So, you know, one team has to win, one team has to lose. We're proud of the Jays. We'll come back next year.
In tennis, Victoria Mboko defeated Spain's Cristina Bucsa at the Hong Kong Open.
Victoria Mboko, sensational season, is sealed in style.
The 19-year-old who trains in Montreal earned her 2nd title of the season. She reached the final after defeating Laval's Leylah Fernandez on Saturday. Meanwhile, Felix Auger-Aliassime lost to Yannick Sinner in straight sets at the final of the Paris Masters. Auger-Aliassime needed to win in order to qualify for the season-ending ATP Finals, taking place in Turin, Italy. A Remembrance Day parade was held in Sainte-Anne-de-Bellevue today. Pipes and drums led the procession, with veterans and cadets walking alongside dignitaries. They stopped at City Hall before heading to the Legion headquarters. Here's veteran and President Rick Cartmel.
The only reason we're here standing on a nice peaceful street is because the veterans did it. Can you imagine living in the Ukraine right now? Yemen, Somalia, all those other places, Gaza? Terror, fear, weapons everywhere. Here, clean streets, organized, well-policed, elected politicians, democracy.
The parade was followed by the laying of wreaths outside St. Anne's Legion Hall. Time for a look at the forecast now. We're at 7 degrees in Montreal and Ottawa. Cooler outside the city, 5 degrees up north and 3 in the eastern townships. Waking up to overcast skies tomorrow. Expect some wet weather in the afternoon. The daytime high 12 degrees. And that November rain will stick around for most of the week. And with dropping temperatures, we could even see snow at some points. On Thursday, the low hits the freezing mark. We'll be back after the national news with a full rundown of election results. And you can check our website, ctvnewsmontreal.ca, for more. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening and take care.